It all started with a wild question: who is the best fighter in the world, regardless of style? The Gracie family, masters of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, believed they had the answer. In 1993, they helped launch the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC, to prove it. Fighters from every discipline, sumo boxing, karate, were thrown into the octagon with almost no rules, no weight classes, no time limits, just raw, unscripted combat. The first event in Denver was pure chaos. A sumo versus a karateka, a boxer with one glove, and Royce Gracie, a smaller man, using technique to defeat giants. Gracie's victory shocked everyone, proving that skill could beat size and strength. The UFC showed that real fights often end up on the ground, not just standing. Fans were hooked by the brutal honesty. This was no show, but a true test of will. The octagon became a laboratory for fighting styles, answering questions no one else dared to ask. But the same rawness that drew fans also scared the mainstream. Marketed as no holds barred, it looked more like a street fight than a sport. The UFC's realism became its biggest problem. The journey from spectacle to sport would be a brutal fight, one that would take place outside the cage. The seeds of mixed martial arts had been planted. The UFC's chaos sparked outrage. Senator John McCain called it human cockfighting and led a campaign to ban it. Cable companies dropped UFC events. Venues refused to host them. The UFC was forced underground, holding events in small towns, barely surviving. Politicians and the public saw it as barbaric, a blood sport with no place in society. The company hemorrhaged money and lost broadcast partners. To survive, the UFC had to change. They worked with athletic commissions, introducing weight classes, rounds, and rules against fouls. Gloves became mandatory. The sport was tamed, inching toward legitimacy, but the damage was done. The UFC brand was toxic, and by 2000 bankruptcy loomed. The original owners were ready to sell. Enter Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, and Dana White, Las Vegas casino executives and fans. In 2001, they bought the UFC for just $2 million, a massive gamble on a dying brand. The sport was banned in most places, and the future looked grim. But the new owners saw potential where others saw only failure. The fight for survival was just beginning. The Fertittas and Dana White poured millions into the UFC, but losses mounted. Desperate, they gambled on a reality show, The Ultimate Fighter. Fighters lived and trained together, competing for a UFC contract. Every network rejected it, except Spike TV, who agreed only if the UFC paid all production costs. The show debuted in 2005, revealing fighters' personalities and struggles, not just violence. It built a following, but everything hinged on the live finale, Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonnar. The fight was an instant classic. 3 rounds of relentless action, heart, and drama. Viewers were glued to their screens, ratings soared in real time. Griffin won, but both fighters became legends. That night, the UFC proved it was more than brutality. It was a sport with real athletes and stories. The Ultimate Fighter saved the UFC, turning a desperate gamble into a cultural phenomenon. The company's future was secured by one unforgettable fight. The world saw MMA's beauty and drama for the first time. The UFC had finally arrived. The sport's legitimacy was undeniable. The Ultimate Fighter's success brought the UFC into the mainstream. New stars like Forrest Griffin and Michael Bisping became household names. Champions like Chuck Liddell and Georges St. Pierre set new standards for skill and professionalism. The UFC worked with commissions to adopt unified rules, making the sport safer and easier to follow. Medical screenings became mandatory. The days of chaos were over. Pay-per-view numbers soared, and events sold out major arenas. Sponsors like Bud Light and Harley-Davidson joined in. Production values skyrocketed, and the UFC became a sports entertainment powerhouse. The company built a sustainable business on TV deals and charismatic fighters. MMA was no longer a fad, it was a legitimate global sport. The UFC had survived its darkest days and was thriving. The dark ages were over. The octagon was now a symbol of respectability. With America conquered, the UFC went global. Brazil, Canada, the UK, Australia, Japan, international champions like Anderson Silva and Conor McGregor became icons, drawing millions worldwide. The UFC's appeal is universal. Fighting is a language everyone understands. Recruiting talent from every continent, the UFC created local heroes and fueled national pride. Today's champions, Islam Makhachev, Alexander Volkanovski, Israel Adesanya, showcase the sport's diversity. The UFC is a global phenomenon, always evolving. New stars rise, legends fall, and every fight card is unpredictable. Social media and streaming bring fans closer than ever. From near death to a $12 billion powerhouse, the UFC's comeback is legendary. It survived political attacks, financial ruin, and public scorn. The Octagon still answers the question, who is the best fighter in the world? The fight, and the story, continues.